I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran. This is episode number 456. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week. And thank you to all of our new listeners. If you are new here, welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. Thank you to all of you who have stuck around for however many years you've been listening. We've been doing this for nearly 10 years. So thank you to everyone who has checks us out every week, downloads the episode, and spends their hard-earned time, their time to listen to the show. It really is appreciated. Thank you to all the members of the Reformation Gun Club who make the show possible. We are listener funded. We have no advertising. We have no sponsors. We rely on people who value what we do and want to see it continue. If you would like to help support the show and keep things going here, then there are ways that you can do it. And one of those is to grab a copy of the book Duty to Defend, which I'll talk about here in a minute, or to join the Reformation Gun Club. You get, as a member, you get access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content on the website that is reserved only for members of the Gun Club. You get invitations to our monthly online hangouts, the most recent of which was last week, the July online hangout for 2025. And you get to come and hang out once a month with some really cool people and interact with other members of the club and members of the cast, myself and Pastor Bennett. Sometimes it's harder with Sergeant Bill because he works on the days that we typically record, and or nights when we typically record, and we're sometimes blessed to have Mia Anstein join us as well. And but it's always a fun time to get together with members of the Reformation Gun Club who are able to join us and to catch up on what everyone's doing and talk about the issues of the day. Today, what we are doing, I almost forgot to mention, if you would like to join the Gun Club, all the donations are handled by Give, Send, Go. It's a Christian-based crowdfunding website. They don't engage in any kind of viewpoint discrimination, which is what we like. And so you are able to give whatever the Spirit moves you to give, and we appreciate every penny that is donated. $1 or more, we love it. We appreciate it. Come and join us, armedlutheran.us/gun club. You can also go to reformationgunclub.com, or you can look for a link in the show notes for this or any of our previous episodes and come and join us. Okay, now to what we are doing today. Today, we are back with another chapter from the book Duty to Defend. This is something we have 17 previous episodes reviewing or just sort of going over the chapters from this book. This is the second edition, which I edited and we published in 2022. And it is an excellent collection of articles, 30 in all. I think there's at least 30 articles from members of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod clergy, ordained pastors from around the country who take verses from Holy Scripture, which are commonly and sometimes uncommonly used in the gun rights debate, and they put those verses into context, and the whole point being to help you understand when you see Scripture cited in an article or a podcast or an interview in support of gun rights or gun control, whether or not that scripture is being used correctly. And 99% of the time it is not. So if you would like to get a copy and listen along with these episodes, then you can grab a copy at Amazon. armedlutheran.us/duty, D-U-T-Y, will take you to the Amazon page. If you order from the Armed Lutheran shop, more of your money goes to Armed Lutheran Radio to support the show. You can also get a signed copy, which you cannot get from Amazon. armedlutheran.us/books, if you would like to grab a copy there. We really do appreciate it. The chapter that we're going through today, so for those of you who have a copy and are listening along, we're going to go through the chapter on gun-free zones, which features a transcript from an interview I did back in episode 43, way back in the early days of the podcast, in the first year of the podcast. This is on page 189, and it features my transcript of my interview with my old pastor from North Carolina, Reverend Ralph Abernathy III. And the introduction to that chapter reads like this: gun-free zones are a misguided attempt by politicians to create safe spaces where people can be free from gun violence, but laws and signs don't deter evil. A common response to these kinds of places that you often hear is the refrain, "I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. But is that a good way for a Christian gun owner to view the issue? Reverend Ralph Abernathy III joined the editor in episode 43 to discuss the issue, and the following is adapted from the transcript of that show. Well, this is not the transcript. What we're doing today is I am sharing with you the segment from episode 43 where we discuss with Reverend Abernathy the issue of gun-free zones and how we should think about them and how we should approach them as Christian gun owners. So enjoy the show. Let's start talking about gun-free zones. I was thinking of this originally in terms of the fourth commandment, but you brought up the fifth as well when we were talking about it before the show. So let's start with the fourth. Honor your father and your mother, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. What does that have to do with gun-free zones?
Okay, let me read the Small Catechism's explanation of that commandment. We should fear and love God so that we do not despise or anger our parents and other authorities, but honor them, serve and obey them, love and cherish them. And in the Large Catechism, Luther explains who these other authorities are. Other authorities are teachers in school. They can be a pastor, Sunday school teacher. Other authorities would also be the government. The government is an authority, civil government, instituted by God for the well-being of our civil order here.
Okay, so gun-free zones come in several different flavors, if you will. They're those that are established by law, those that might be established by our employers, and those established by private businesses or private citizens. So let's look at each of those with the fourth commandment in mind. Gun-free zones established by law, for example, schools, or in Texas, anywhere that you have the 30-06 or 30-07 signs, or in places like North Carolina, basically anywhere that you have a no gun sign carries the weight of law. I would assume the fourth commandment is pretty clear on this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to refer to the Large Catechism here. In it, Luther talks about obedience to civil government and says, here, father is not one person from a single family, but it means that many people the father has as tenants, citizens, or subjects. Through them, as through our parents, God gives to us food, house, and home, protection, and security. They, those in government, bear such name and title with all honor as their highest dignity, that it is our duty to honor them and to value them greatly. So, we are called to obedience to civil government. And Luther takes this, oddly enough, from the scriptures. Imagine Luther.
Imagine that.
Yeah, golly gosh. Romans 13 in particular, 1 through 7 says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities." Now, first we have to understand that St. Paul is addressing Christians here, addressing the church as a whole. So that is an important distinction we have to make. "For there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment." Then Paul goes on to explain the purpose of civil government. "Rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is an authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his, that is, the authority's approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer." So right there you have the two main functions of civil government: to reward those who do good and to punish those who do evil. To maintain God's civil order in a world that is fallen, in a world that resists that order. Again, you have to understand that St. Paul is addressing the church here, more so than the individual Christian believer. Let's put it this way. Martin Luther really emphasized the doctrine of the two kingdoms.
Right.
There was the kingdom of the right and the kingdom of the left. The kingdom of the right is the spiritual kingdom. It is the kingdom of grace. It is the church's domain, or rather, it is God's domain through the church. The kingdom of the left is civil government, and again, instituted by God for the reward of those who do well and the punishment of those who do wrong. You cannot mix the two, which is the case many times in the God and country movement in this country. They are to be distinct. Neither one is to encroach upon the duties and responsibilities of the other, nor to restrict the legitimate duties and responsibilities of the other. Now, you and I and all your listeners are citizens of two kingdoms.
Right.
As Christians, we are citizens of the kingdom of the right. Our ultimate loyalty is to this kingdom. But in the political realm, the civil realm, we are also citizens of that nation in which we reside and are responsible to obey the laws of that nation insofar as those laws do not conflict with the higher laws of God.
Something that just came to mind was, some would argue that, well, these laws aren't really moral because they prevent me the opportunity to defend myself and my family in the public space.
Okay, you're talking about the laws concerning gun-free zones?
Yes.
Well, let's examine that. Does a gun-free zone in, say, a school or a government building prevent you from defending your family? Does the government have a right to implement these gun-free zones? Now, obviously, what occurred at Newtown, if there had been people armed with guns early on, that tragedy would not have unfolded the way that it did.
Right.
And I think that would have been good if people had been armed with guns to protect the students and teachers. But as it is, the government says no, and we have to determine how we as Christians approach this. Now, again, we are citizens of two kingdoms, and we can vote for, we can work for legislation that would expand the zones in which guns can legally be carried, again, for the defense of those who could fall victims to violence.
So the best way to change things is not to break the law, but to work within the kingdom of the left and change the laws that are in place currently?
That's what I would say. We have a unique responsibility and privilege as citizens of what is supposed to be a free democratic country. We have the right and privilege of voting. Supposedly, we can make our voices heard. And when we make our voices heard, we do so with Christian love, but we do not remove ourselves from the kingdom of the left. Mm-hmm. Again, God has placed us here, and we should responsibly exercise these privileges, rights, and responsibilities. There are certain brands of Christianity that are ultra-pacifistic, mm-hmm. that actually want nothing at all to do with the government. They think civil government is an evil. Now, obviously, it can be evil. It can become demonic.
Right.
But again, God has established civil government for the benefit of society. It goes back to after the flood. God tells Noah, for your lifeblood, I will require reckoning from every beast. I will require it from man. From his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. God made man in his own image. Again, this goes back to the state's calling to bear the sword for the punishment of evildoers. And as citizens of the state, we have the responsibility to see that that is done. Not in an overbearing manner, not in an unloving manner, but it's unloving to leave our citizens who may be subjected to violence unprotected. And part of that protection does come from those who bear firearms, concealed to carry.
We talked a little about vocation with Pastor Wolfmueller on one of our one episode. We talked about the three kingdoms, or the three estates.
Yes.
And we talked about how Luther recognized that those three estates, you can be a member of all three of them. You're obviously a member of the family.
Yes.
You're a member. You can be a member of your church. You could also serve in government. You unlike the old medieval way of thinking about it, you didn't have to leave one to join the other, right? So
that's right.
And we talked about how when you are faced with an emergency, sometimes those, whatever your vocation is, sort of may change. If you drive up on a car accident, suddenly you're no longer just a father or a car driver or a pizza delivery guy, or you're a doctor suddenly.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation where someone is trying to harm your neighbors with a gun, and by neighbors I'm using the biblical term, or with some other kind of weapon, if they're committing an act of violence against your neighbor, suddenly you're no longer just that other guy, that stranger. Suddenly you're a policeman.
Yes.
Especially if you are one of the responsible people that actually has a concealed carry permit and is carrying a gun every day.
Yes. And again, Luther says the same thing in his explanation to the fifth commandment. We should fear and love God so that we do not hurt or harm our neighbor in his body, but help and befriend him in every bodily need, or in every need and danger of life and body. So you're exactly right. When we see our neighbor, which is a broad term, not the person living next door to us or across a backyard fence, when we see our neighbor in danger, it is our calling to come to that neighbor's aid. And, handguns are a part of that.
Which is part of why we as Christians should oppose gun-free zones and work within that left-hand kingdom to overturn them and abolish them. It prevents us from coming to the aid of our neighbors.
Yes.
So the second kind of gun-free zone you're likely to run into, and you're more likely to run into this one, is the private business with private property, where say a place like Target or Home Depot or Starbucks. So those are the more famous ones where the company has actually come out and expressed their policy that, hey, don't bring your guns into our stores, but they don't necessarily post a sign. The signs are not backed, or if they do have a sign, it's not backed by law. What is our responsibility there, or how should we view those places as Christian gun owners?
It's my understanding, you explained this to me, that, well, you just said it, that that policy and any signs they may put up have no legal authority behind them. It is just the store policy. Mm-hmm. I would imagine in any Target at any time during the day, there are people who carry concealed weapons.
But as a Christian, if I'm doing that, am I violating the fourth commandment?
I don't see Target as being one of the other authorities we should love and cherish, respect, and obey.
Right. Now, not to single out Target here, but any business that has a policy like that.
Yes. Lou's Bar and Grill.
Yeah.
Of course, Lou's Bar and Grill wouldn't have such a policy.
So that brings us to the next sort of gun-free zone, which is the workplace. What if you were the employee at Lou's Bar and Grill, and what if Lou has a policy against guns in the workplace? Maybe it's not illegal for you to have guns in his business. Maybe he doesn't even post signs, but he has a company policy that says you as an employee can't bring a gun to work. Like my boss, for example, has no written policy even, but he has made it clear in company meetings, guns are not allowed.
Well, in the case of Lou's Bar and Grill, hopefully each employee has been outfitted with a big baseball bat in that case. Luther would say, and the scriptures would say, that employees are subject to their employers, mm-hmm. and that in that case there should be obedience to the company's official policy. Now, whether that's wise, that's open to debate. These days, I don't think it's necessarily wise. I think it's making the employees of the company vulnerable. Right. But nonetheless, if you expect to work for that company, if you draw your income from that company so you can support your family and do good in society, the better thing to do, and I think the scriptural thing to do, would be to honor that company's policy. And of course, I could turn it around on you and say, how do you approach that?
I approach it exactly as you described it. I honor the policy. And as we talked about earlier, I think if it's intolerable to you, you should probably find another place to work.
Yes.
Or as we discussed earlier in the show, work within that left-hand kingdom to discuss with your employer, talk to him about the policy, and see if you can't convince him to change his ways or change his mind. And if that's not possible, then you either comply with it or you find somewhere else to work.
Yeah, you may have more success convincing Lou to allow his employees to carry guns than you would a large company corporation.
Right.
So go work at Lou's.
Right, exactly. Lou seems more reasonable, yes.
Yes.
What about the question of guns in churches? Now, some states have laws that don't permit you to carry a gun in church.
Not know that.
That's true. Many states do not permit you by law to carry a gun in church. That's one of the state mandated gun-free zones. But others do not put that sort of stricture on churches, and they leave it to the individual churches to decide. Some people would say, guns have no place in church. What do you say to that?
Well, let me tell you about one of my professors of theology at Concordia Fort Wayne. He would carry a gun to class. It was open carry. He also served a small church near the seminary, and he carried a gun into the pulpit. As we know, there have been many incidents of violence in churches, shooters. People die. And if we in the church don't take the steps to defend our people. After all, we defend them by proclaiming Christ to them. But in a society in which violence is becoming increasingly common, I think it is well and good for churches to have people who are armed, because one never knows when an active shooter situation may develop, particularly in an age of terror such as we are in.
Right.
Now, there are Christians who think guns and Christianity do not belong together. There was a gentleman from another congregation here when he found out that we had a group of members, and you orchestrated this, a group of members who were going to one of the local shooting ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular person, again, he was not a member of our congregation, thought that was horrible. For one thing, we went for a good time.
Mm-hmm.
We also went to practice and develop our proficiency with firearms in case we ever needed to use those firearms in self-defense or to defend those who would otherwise likely fall victims to violence.
Yep.
If I may say so, this may be a little off track.
That's fine.
You were the first one to get me in a shooting range. And one of the things I noticed was how respectful the owner and the employees of that range were of guns, and wanting to make sure that the people who came in used those guns in a safe, responsible manner. As I recall, I had to watch several videos and sign several papers before I was even allowed on the range.
Mm-hmm.
So the emphasis there is safety and responsibility. And as I recall, well, maybe it's you who told me this, that pulling out your gun and using it is the course of last resort.
Right.
And when you pull it out, when you put the finger on the trigger, you need to be sure that this is serious business, and you're going to take steps to defend yourself or someone else.
Yeah, a quick shout out to the range that we attended, Jack Simons at Springs Road Gun Club. Great guy and very, very safety conscious. Welcomed us our weekly or monthly range nights. We had a great time. You're absolutely right that as Aaron Israel, one of our co-hosts or co-contributors, says every so often, the gun is really an answer to a small subset of problems that you might face in a self-defense situation. It's the tool of last resort.
Yes.
And if you can extricate yourself from that situation without having to use it, that's the better course of action. But
yes.
If you're going to draw it, you had better be ready to use it.
Well, let me turn this around on you.
Okay.
But I recall you saying, assuming my memory is not failing me, which is possible at my age, that if you were forced to use a gun on someone, you would first try to disable them without killing them, and then you would visit them in prison and share the gospel with them. Now, am I remembering correctly, or is that way off base?
Well, it's close. The first thing you hear, a lot of people will say you shoot to kill, right? If you're threatened, if somebody comes in your home or somebody's trying to attack you with a weapon, that you shoot to kill, and that's not correct. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to, as Aaron said, I took one of Aaron's classes over the weekend, and he kept using this term, you shoot until the bad guy stops doing bad guy things. As many rounds as it might take. If it takes one round and he drops the gun and runs away, or if he sees the gun and gives up, that's fine. But if it takes 7, 8, 10, if it takes you emptying the magazine into him before he stops trying to hurt you or hurt your family or the people around you, then that's what it takes. If he happens to die in the process, that's unfortunate and you pray for him, but he sort of brought that on himself. And yes, and this was something interesting that in that book, A Time to Kill, by Greg Hopkins. He talks about in one of the chapters, he talks about going above and beyond just stopping the criminal, but once they're stopped and once they're under control and they have been taken off to the hospital or sent off to jail, how many of us think to go visit that person in the hospital and say, I forgive you. I'm here to see how you're doing, and to show that person that you care about them as a person. Now, you may be the first person that ever does that, and it may not make a difference, but you never know.
Well, and that's reflecting the attitude of Christ, who came into a world that was hostile to God, enemies with God. Mm-hmm. He came to be crucified by that world, to die for the world's sins. He came to us even though we were rebellious. He comes to us in his word and sacraments, even though by nature we are enemies of God.
Right.
He comes to us, and the situation you describe is reflecting the love and self-giving of Christ. It's kind of like Matthew 25. I was in prison, and you visited me. Mm-hmm. And now you visited me when I had attempted to do such a horrible thing to you or members of your family.
Yep.
That's love in action.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or any questions about what you heard here today, please visit the feedback page, armedlutheran.us/feedback, and leave us your thoughts, your comments, or you can comment on the YouTube channel or on Facebook. If you would like to suggest an episode, we'd love to hear that as well. I'd like to hear your thoughts about gun-free zones and our attitude toward them as Christian gun owners. What do you think of today's episode? Next week, probably going to be doing another chapter. I'm not sure which one. It'll be a surprise. And if you're a member of the Reformation Gun Club, you'll get to hear it early. So thank you all for listening. Keep shooting. Keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.